I didn't see you there. Welcome to the plane to hell. Hopefully your seatbelts are fastened in order to make the trip slightly faster and more enjoyable. You'll see an emergency exit on the left, which has been boarded up with lies and broken promises. We'll be going straight down for another 5 years, and we'll see then if we reach the bottom yet. Okay, that might be a bit dramatic. So here I am, talking about the French elections. Again, we've had our second turn, and it has been even dumber than the first one. Now, before I spoil the very obvious result of a fascist going against a neolib for the second time, I want to talk about the candidates themselves. Emmanuel Macron is a neoliberal, and he is the youngest French leader since Napoleon Bonaparte. He's the kind of guy that let this go to his head and now praises both the free market and Bonapartism. Lobbies love him, and workers tend to despise him, for good reasons. Despite his relative youth, he has been taking this role of a patriarch of the French people, acting more of indignant pride than listening to the people that actually have to live under his rule, like a king would. Though he still places a lot of trust in the system of representative democracy, without being foreign to political meddling to get what he wants though. He also apparently believes in the free market and trickle-down economics, which has totally not been proven wrong by the current econ crisis we're in. So not only he has shit econ, he has also shit social. The only good thing about him is his foreign policy. With Europe being at the center of his decisions, he has been pushing for a better union since the beginning, all the while wanting to leave NATO for an EU alternative. Also, it's been relatively progressive, I guess. He's had moments where his at the same time approach has led him or his government to marginalize people, but overall it's been more of the same thing. I'll probably do a video describing the guy in detail later. I quickly talked about Le Pen in another video, but here's a quick reminder. She is a far-right candidate that supports the death penalty and very harsh immigration policies. Also, she has a pretty good relationship with Putin. And by that, I mean she owes money to a Russian bank and has praised the Russian government for a return of Christianity in Europe. I'll let you decide what that means. This is only a small part of all the bullshit because there's the European Union, LGBT rights, and other human rights she wants to ignore or get out of. So you'll be pleased to hear that her family just lost their 7th election bid. Oh shit, spoiler alert by the way, Macron won, by a relatively small margin. What? Relatively small margin? Why? Wouldn't people vote Macron to make sure the far right loses? Wouldn't they? So, in order to avoid this video becoming a 10-minute rant of me insulting the left, let's talk about spite. Or precisely, let's talk about why people equate the bad of Le Pen to the bad of Macron. And we're not going to do the Sean kind of thing and become suddenly incapable of seeing the larger picture until people tell you you're being an idiot. Oh wait, I'm doing it again. I'm complaining about the left. Okay, fuck it. The left has gone faulted against Macron because they lost at the first turn. And a lot of them just liked hating Macron so much that they completely forgot the fact that Le Pen is indeed bad. Mélenchon was fucking terrible to begin with, so the jump between the two candidates was an easy one. You just had to dog whistle your hate for the EU and your love for the Russian government in a way that would make you popular. Mélenchon was good at this, mind you, except for the times he wasn't, where he openly declared to be a saint out of anger, or praised the Russian government's actions within Crimea and Syria in order to make an argument against NATO, which I talked about. This is why I talk about spite, by the way. The general mood seems to be the simple opposition to a narrative or an ideology, and this is very easy to manipulate. That's why 20% of the Mélenchon votership went for Le Pen, and another quarter just didn't fucking vote. A lot of people seem to be proud of their abstention, so I'll talk to them right now. It's pretty easy to snub the vote if you have nothing to lose. This simplistic view of politics isn't unique to France or the elections in general. For the first part, we saw something similar in the US with Bernie or busters, aka people who wouldn't vote for anyone but Bernie Sanders. And since he didn't make the list, these people just didn't vote or voted against the Democrats out of spite. This means they voted for Trump, being a fascist too on the libs. It has to be said that this opposition isn't either smart or a good way of looking at politics in general. I quickly talked about this in my video about Ukraine and NATO, and the one on pessimism, and the one on Mélenchon. Okay, I talked about this a lot, because it is the main problem of a lot of people's view of politics. And yeah, not just the left. The problem with this reactionary thinking, because that's what it is that it tends to only end up being good for the right wing. Voting against progressive neolibs don't tend to lead you to a more progressive left. Quite the contrary, the strategy of opposition is really harmful to any progressive movement, as if we try to make things better, one hard step at a time, and then some fucking accelerationist, because they feel like it's going too slow, will vote for the far right and completely fuck us over. Because I do have to remind people on the left that the far right getting more votes makes their ideas seem more normal, and therefore causes more problems that it can solve. And when it's not about the elections, we get what we call tankies, or in general, people will support shit takes with only surface level left-wing aesthetics because they're opposed to the neolibs, once again supporting the fascists to own the libs. This is why the French left is opposed to the EU, by the way. The EU is currently far from perfect, or from good to begin with. For example, they've been asking us to privatize our rail network for a while now. And since the EU today is mostly a commercial deal, the left, instead of trying to make it better, has defaulted to being opposed to it altogether. The pro-EU left is currently dying in France, given that the European Green Party is now kind of fusing with the main anti-EU leftist party, La France Insoumise, aka Mélenchon. The fucking problem. Yet another proof that the Greens are fucking spineless. And this is where I talk about why settling for a shit left isn't as good as you think. Either you end up with some bullshit authoritarian project that only leads to people losing more rights, or just a massive failure that harms the left as a whole and just gives more ammunitions and voters to the far right. Something we've seen happen in France with the death of the Socialist Party. They are still present right now, but they won't last long. Their candidates are bad, and reputation even worse. They had a president so widely hated that now it's political suicide to ally with them. So maybe, just maybe, we should try to build a good left-wing party during the next 5, maybe 7 years? Maybe? Anyways, enough complaining about the left. What is to come with Macron as a president? Again. Well, if we trust what he said, and we probably shouldn't, he's a politician, he has desires for a more ecologically centered second presidency. But given that his last few ministers for ecological transition have resigned, the guy seems to have his own mind about what that means. We'll probably see more uses of the authoritarian 49.3, and of course the bad decisions about the age of retirement. I'd expect a greater presence of the gig economy as well. My current job seems to be a consequence of these kinds of policies, doing only weekly contracts with no job certainty. We'll surely see more scandals as well, because of the at the same time approach. Probably more issues on condemning the far right and staffing his government with people from there. On the good side, we'll probably get a clear opposition to Russia, a clear support for Ukraine, and a push for a stronger, more united EU. Macron has talked about leaving NATO in the past for an EU alternative. Amongst other good positions on freedom of movement within the EU, good ecological goals, which once again you should take that with a grain of salt, and as of recently, a united energy sold by France's nuclear power. Because, neolib, free market. The next 5 years will also lead to more fervent protests against them, and with this a rise of both Mélenchon's left and the far rights. And yeah, far rights, plural. I don't think it's because Zemmour lost the election that he'll give up on the seat of power. Either ways, I'll call it today. The next elections will be Mélenchon against one of the far-right cretins that still believe that black people live in their walls. The next 5 years will be eventful, and yet relatively calm compared to the alternatives. Just more status quo. And my hopes within the next 5 to maybe 7 years is that the left-wing coalition becomes more openly pro-Europe and for making positive change rather than attempting to leave it. Anyways, we're done. We're going to shut up.